maybe we'll just jump right in. I feel like we should go get some goggles. Yeah. That was the first thing I thought was like, hey, Casey.
Did you ever play any of those pool games where it's like, let's have a tea party or anything like that? Did you ever do that? Or was
Oh,
it
when you would be
like
underwater?
no, it was like a game I would play at the pool with some other kids my age is like it was like the tea party and it was like a race and you'd have to go under, sit on the floor, pour the tea, drink it, and then wave and then go up.
Yeah, yeah.
You
We
do
would
that?
do
Okay.
stuff like that. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's so great.
That was one of those things where I was like, was that like one of those playground games that had somehow like permeated the world even though there wasn't like the internet back then?
Yeah, we would always change it too, to where like you would have to do like a series of something and we would come up with what the little
Sequence.
movements were, and then
Okay.
we would, yeah, go up.
Yeah, first it was always tea party, and then you'd have to do like handstand contests and stuff like that too.
Yeah, handstand contest for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I feel like I'm just gonna keep that in. That could be your opening.
Go for it. Yeah.
But Casey, welcome to the Wata.
Ah, I'm like feeling very weightless and free.
I am too. I love it. I love swimming. I just like you, just love moving my body and just exploring like the different movements and just giving me like some physical challenges too. And what I realized, especially as I'm uh like weightlifting or swimming or cycling or doing a lot of repetitive motions and movements, it helps regulate me really, really well. Like I need a lot of proprioceptive input in order to like feel regulated and balanced. And the more regulated I feel, the more it's like little bits of inspiration kind of pop up. And I'll have ideas. Like I love going to the gym and not really listening to anything and just chewing and mulling on some thoughts. Like it's a good way for me to just process everything and make sense of what I've been experiencing or things that I've been kind of noodling on for a while and just am trying to resolve or trying to look at differently. And what I noticed, especially over the past few years, is I'll be this one particular example. I was swimming in the morning. So I live pretty close to a gym and it has an outdoor pool. And I would wake up at that time, I woke up at like 5:30 and went swimming and it's just me and some old swimmers, retired folks swimming out there. And I remember at this point, I was in a very stressful job situation, and I was still working on color mending, but was trying to balance the two. And the projects that the job that I was working at were working on, because we were also developing apps and tools for kids, were very similar to kind of the problems that I was solving with color mending, specifically around like emotional regulation and being able to teach kids about emotions in a playful, fun way, and something in a way that could use both hardware and software and be like a low lift for teachers because teachers have a lot on their plates. And so as I was swimming, I was like, I should tell my bosses about color mending to see if they want to like integrate it into their app. And the first like the sense of relief that I felt after having this thought, it was like, oh, like this is good. Like this could be really good. It could solve both problems. Like I could work on my app. I could work on color mending more. At that point, I was developing like a patent for an app for color mending. I still have the patent and everything else, but um, I was like, we were in like this product development building phase in like my 9 to 5 job as well. I was like, this could be good. And then once I started thinking about it more, I got nervous And I realized that the nervousness was going to be because I would have to kind of talk to my bosses about this. And my bosses, they're really good guys. Like their hearts are like genuinely like so good. Will give you the shirt off their back. Incredibly smart, incredibly talented. When it came to their product development approach, it was very different than mine. And that I knew um that if I had this conversation and if they were interested, that there was a potential that, I mean, they would like they might change things, they might like, it would just be a little different. But because I mean, I have an MBA, I love business, I love studying business. And there's a lot of business narratives and philosophies, especially in capitalist markets, that talk about how if something feels uncomfortable, you just kind of have to push through it. It's also like the productivity kind of narrative out there as well. But specifically for business in capitalist markets, they talk about like you got to do the hard thing.
Can I ask you a question real quick? Is that
Yeah,
something like that's part of the MBA curriculum, or is that just sort of like a cultural thing once you get into the business world?
it's a cultural thing once you get into the business world. Now, the MBA program that I did was 14 years ago, and I was really young during that time. And it was like a pretty condensed, it was like a year-long MBA program. It didn't have, like most MBA programs are 2 years, or more if you do like your work full-time and get your MBA. But I just wanted to do quick and dirty in and out. So I do not remember a lot about them talking about the psychology of like what you're going to experience on your road of entrepreneurship, but this is like primarily the culture of entrepreneurs, especially from entrepreneurs who don't have like a traditional business background. Or I think it's kind of like the rise of like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and
Self-made,
yeah,
huge, like moguls. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so once that nervousness kicked in, I was like, you know what? I just got to do it. Like the nervousness is a sign that it's the right path, and I got to have these conversations. So I introduced it to the product manager at the time and I had, there's two co-founders of this company. So the co-founder that I worked with the most, nothing really came of it. But I also, in my mind, I was like, oh, that was just because it was like a half-hearted execution. Like I didn't, like if I wanted it more, I would have like followed up more, et cetera, et cetera. But what I realized after that event and a few other instances where this has happened is that that's not what's happening at all. I'm not having these strokes of inspiration. I'm having these strokes of cognitive avoidance where I know what I need to do, but my brain will rationalize or come up with a scenario or solution that could also fix it, but it's not what I need to do. And primarily it works the way that what my brain looks for, especially because the thing that I, especially on this entrepreneurship journey of color mending, the thing that I keep coming back and like just integrating and getting feel like every week or every month it's just another layer deeper of this, of how can I like take more responsibility and ownership of it instead of delegating it or pushing the ownership or the what word is this? It's like, how do I actually take ownership of the idea and take responsibility and accountability instead of
Like
pushing it off?
outsourcing it,
What was that?
like outsourcing it, or
Yeah, like
delivering it.
outsourcing it, but specifically like outsourcing the responsibility of it. Like instead of like owning it and like no matter what the outcome is, it's kind of like a way to protect myself from like, hey, if I fail,
Mhm. Yeah.
this like I'm not gonna take the heat for it, or I could blame someone else for it. Like it's kind of
So
putting,
a lot of times I would say for most people, the way that that shows up is in procrastination. And it'll be
mm,
like, for example, when or the pattern that I usually saw that the most in was with like studying in academics
hmm,
because I hated the thought of failure. And so avoiding, like,
yeah,
because I was like, I'm smart. And if I try and fail, then that means I'm not smart. Then who am I? And it turns into this like whole like dumb spiral
yeah,
where so then it would be I realized that I would use procrastination, especially around academics, as a way to kind of maintain the status quo of my brain of like, well, if I don't try that hard and I don't do well, who cares? I didn't try that hard. It's not because I'm dumb,
yeah,
it's just I didn't try.
yeah,
But heaven forbid I try hard and fail because what would that mean? And so, yeah, I totally get it where you're just like kind of delaying it and you're trying to use sort of these procrastination habits as a way or like these sorts of like mental games as a way to be able to experience trying without failing
yeah.
or avoiding like any outcomes that you don't feel equipped to handle, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And it's so interesting, like once you dive into like the whole aspect of it too, because like I'll still have those like aha moments when I'm exercising, but the difference is like, and this is why I love like interoception and being able to be in tune with like what your body's feeling is because there's a distinct difference between if it's a good like if it's a solid idea that's going to bring me closer to my goals or who I want to be or to the life that I want to create, then instead of having that nervousness, it's more of like that excitement of like, I can do this and it feels more empowering versus kind of like a relief and then like, oh my God, this is like heavy. So, and it's also so fascinating too to see where like the rationalization will kick in. And then I'll do the half-hearted execution, but I think for you, it's like a productive form of like procrastination. So instead of
Mhm.
like kicking it off and not taking action, I'm still taking action, but just taking action on the wrong things.
Mhm.
So it still like scratches the itch of like the productivity and being productive, but it doesn't get me anywhere closer to like actually accomplishing the thing or actually seeing if it works or not and being okay if it does or doesn't work. But just chalking it up to like experience and like the worst thing that would happen with failure is that you have more information, which honestly isn't that bad.
It really isn't, but it's totally relatable. It sounds to me too like maybe these distractions or these like productivity distractions you were giving yourself instead of pursuing the thing you actually were wanting to pursue. Sounds like too like a way to protect yourself from vulnerability and feeling exposed of like
100%.
I'm putting myself out there, which feels scary. And even if it's like putting yourself out there because it's something that you want to do, there's just so many what ifs and unknowns that just like the exposing yourself and not getting the outcome that you're hoping for is it's just a vulnerable situation. And it's like, oh
Yeah.
gosh, I don't know what's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
I think too, and this is why I think one of the reasons why I like this podcast help or like I've been focusing on like content creation too is because I think those are just really simple ways to like build up the evidence or collect data to be like it's okay for me to be perceived by a mass amount of people
Mhm.
and some people will like it. Some people will hate it. Some people will have an opinion about it. Some people will not give a rat's ass. But at the end of the day, like if I'm okay with what I'm doing and I feel like I'm being in integrity and I can cross all my T's and dot all my I's and I'm open to changing and hearing people out and having conversations, then like really I've got nothing to lose. So it's been
Yeah.
kind of an interesting past 3 years. I feel like the the experience of like the swimming happened, I think it was 3 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, might have even been closer to like 3.5 years ago, but it's been fun to see the changes and then to be able to understand like how how my brain works too. I feel like a lot of this stuff um that I would chalk up as inspiration or like avoidance or just a fear of being vulnerable. I mean, a lot of it does tie to ADHD too, and the
Mhm.
executive functions. So that's also been like super helpful as well to finally get a diagnosis, and we'll talk about it in our next episode. But um, yeah, I feel like all the stories that we've shared so far is just another data point, another thanks for the information, body and mind. Now I understand what I'm dealing with and what I'm working with, and now I can have the knowledge and kind of the routines and the knowledge in place to help me realize like the traps that I usually fall into.
That's no, that sounds like it was. So I would say what I heard is you did have an epiphany while you were swimming. It's just not the one you thought you were having.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
when we look at what you just shared, it is a lot of really great and valuable insights you got that started when you thought you were having this like stroke of brilliance while you were swimming, which was actually just like cognitive avoidance, which was also you just your body and your brain trying to tell you something else, which is ultimately where you've ended up.
Yeah, 100%.
So, sometimes our trajectory is not direct, but
Yes.
we usually just are, as long as we're moving in the right direction, baby, that's all we got to do.
I know.
Yeah,
It's
it sounds to me like, yeah, you were swimming and you felt like you had some really good ideas. At the time, you interpret these ideas as I need to talk to my company about seeing if the product that I'm working on, if this pursuit that I have, and if this uh, skill set I have with color mending would be able to fit the bill. Wouldn't that be great? A marriage of what they need plus giving me opportunity to work on what I'm wanting to work on.
with the stability too of like
Yeah.
a
With
steady
a job
paycheck.
and insurance and
Yeah.
all the stuff that comes with a job with benefits. Yeah.
Yes.
And it sounds like, you pitched it, which I also just want to give you props because I know part of like, even though you were still engaging in some like sort of protective self-protective ways of like, this is my way of pitching it, but not having to fully back it the way that I maybe ultimately want to back it or present it. You were still putting it out there. So like also give yourself some credit for putting it out there.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the way that you were ultimately wanting to or hoping to.
Well,
You're
honestly,
just
I think
putting it
that
out there.
was just like my body's way of saying, like, Chelsea, this is not it. Like, this is not like you think you're being like really brave and doing this, but like, this isn't, this isn't it. And so I
Yeah.
think that that was also just me being like, oh, I did it. Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I've got to go back to the drawing board. Like, for me, it's more like putting myself out there is really never. Mm, there's some things like especially when it comes to like sharing my personal story or just like little details or being like authentically me, like there's still some things where I'm like I want to hold this close and I'm not sure if I'm ready for that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like talking to people that I have a working relationship with, or like it's not as scary. Or like for example, like another way that's came up, especially at the beginning of like my color mending and quitting my full-time job to work on it full-time. I i was like I just need to get therapists to like pay to like license it so that they can use it for their their practice. And so I put a lot of time and attention into trying to reach out to therapists and talk to them about it. And it never really went anywhere. But the great thing about that is that I was on the right path. Like the trajectory was where I knew I eventually needed to go. Um, but I was just complicating it. So I think that like it always, like I'm always so proud of myself for like putting myself out there and like talking to people about it and just starting conversations because I feel like it just teaches you so much. Like after talking to so many different therapists, I think one of the reasons why I wanted to do that was because therapists are like intimidating. And some of them are like really amazing and kind. I mean, the majority of the ones that I worked with are, and some of them are just like straight up bitches. So and I also understand too that like I'm not a licensed mental health professional. And so it just taught me a ton about like what are the what are the words that I can and can't say? What are the things that are triggers? Where are the boundaries? Like what is a safe place for me to go marketing wise? What
Mhm.
is, and by safe, I mean, what is a place that's actually going to talk about the benefits of what the tool does without saying it's a replacement for mental health services? Because it never has been. Um, but like, what are the stories that I can tell? What are the conversations that I can have? Um, what are the experiences and case studies that I need to show that like, no, like while I'm not a licensed mental health professional, um, it is like basically loved by therapists and counselors and people who are licensed, um, and reputable and not and doing more good than harm type of a thing. So it just teaches you so much. And I think there's always this tension of, man, I wish I would go faster or like the journey would go faster.
Mhm.
But and by faster it just means I just trying to get to the end of being able to have a pretty robust like clientele and a network of people, but then just realizing that hey, good stuff takes time, which is also part of the ADHD too, of sticking with things and
Language.
delaying the gratification. Yeah.
Yep. No, but I mean, really, well, good. I think that's cool too that you have that level of self-awareness that, hey, I don't mind putting myself out there when it comes to this product or products like these.
Mm-hmm.
That, and also you're allowed to have things that you don't share with other people because you don't feel ready
Yeah.
and because you don't want to share it. So,
Yeah.
that's also okay. But it sounds like, yeah, this, what you had was a moment of realizing that what you were framing at the time as an epiphany was really just a step along the way towards moving you somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it seems like even in the moment you were sort of aware that that's what was happening.
Yeah.
You had to give yourself the chance to have the experience to really appreciate that, like, yep, that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And like, but again, like props to you for putting yourself out there in whatever ways you did, because that does require vulnerability, even if it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
And it's also though, just like how you got the information you needed to know which way you had to go. So good for you. Like,
Well,
sounds
thanks.
like you just had to sort of trick yourself into doing the thing that you knew you needed to do all along.
Yeah,
So
that's
that
true.
you could fully update like your that so that you could acknowledge within yourself the reality of what you kind of knew was there the whole time, which was, yeah, this is
Yeah.
confirmation that this is what I actually need to do. And that's how you were, and you just had to kind of give yourself a couple of back roads ways of getting to
Yeah.
update your mental model and pursue this chapter of your life the way that you wanted to.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Casey.
Yeah.
And also to just all this stuff too, I feel like we need to take a second and just tell people that like being able to learn all of this stuff about yourself or being curious about it and being open to what you discover, whatever it is. I mean, it's hard shit.
Yeah.
It's sometimes not great to see like the parts of yourself where you're like, ah, that's
Yeah. And especially where like our lives have moved a lot more towards curation. And
Yeah.
even, like reality, it's like not always the most real.
Yeah.
And so, like social media has benefits, but it has also made it easier for us to live performatively, because we kind of are, thinking about audiences, even when it's just like, we're just, be in your life.
Yeah.
And so it can make it easy too to not to want to avoid the realities of how, like how boring we usually are and how like dorky we usually are and how or like how unflattering sometimes the core of us really is, and how flawed we are and how geez like we are okay but we're not like as great as we always project ourselves to be, or we're not always as like remarkable as sometimes we think or other people perceive us to be, like there's sort of, I don't know, to me, there's sort of, and this isn't to be like we're all shit, but like kind of more of a, we're all just like humans. So we all have great things about us and not great things about us. And we all have moments of brilliance, but most of the time we're just pretty average,
Yeah.
you know? And like there is kind of this nice, to me, it's comforting to be able to realize we do share a lot of that humanity with each other. But I also know just because of the nature of the world and like the like social media and like hustle cultures and stuff like that, it's easy to be like, oh, but being average is like so disappointing. And it's like, well, that's where most of us are is
Yeah.
average. It's average, you know, and just kind of being okay with it, that it takes time to learn things about yourself. Sometimes the things you learn about yourself, you're like, oh, like you're kind of hoping to see yourself in a different light. And that's part of why too, like I've also avoided seeing things. One of the things I remember learning in therapy is that a lot of times people aren't like necessarily choosing denial, like, no, I want to live in denial. Like some people obviously are,
Yeah.
but denial a lot of times can be happening subconsciously because we're trying to protect ourselves. And,
Yeah.
and from a reality we're not equipped to accept or face for whatever reason. And it just takes us a minute to get there. And
Yeah.
so it makes sense why people want to avoid like any sort of self curiosity.
Mhm.
Um, and all that, and I get it because I've been there too, but at the same time the nice thing is like that's how you can actually start to grow and make any sort of real movement in your life towards the kind of life you want to have or the person you want to be, is by kind of first discovering and acknowledging where you actually are with things.
Yes. Yeah. That's so beautifully said. Yeah, everything you just said, just yeah, stamp of yes, I agree. I was talking to my brother about that too, especially because
Your
New
terrible
Year's,
brother
my terrible brother.
that you're like, hang on, you saw he was calling, you heard him got a scoop of peanut butter and then you answered.
Yeah.
Okay. Double checking. Yes.
That's my brother.
Mhm.
He visited for Thanksgiving and we were talking about we would go on walks because the place that they were renting is close to one of like a prominent nature trail here in Austin. And so I would go over there with the dogs and we would just like walk in the mornings. And one of the mornings we were talking about, especially because New Year's is coming up. And I feel like this is probably the most like delusional denial era of a year or part of a year is when people get into the planning the New Year's resolutions and their goals for 2026. And we talked a lot about how it's so nice just to like see yourself for who you are, like your average parts, like your great parts, your parts you love about yourself, the parts that you could like do without.
Mhm.
But just see where you're at and meet yourself where you're at because it just gives you like a much clearer baseline of what can, I mean, you can literally do whatever you want. Like I'm a huge believer of like you can do anything you put your mind to and like anything you want and you're willing to make the sacrifices for to make happen in your life, like you can make it happen. But the two parts that I think a lot of people skim over are one, a realistic expectation or realistic analysis of like where you are, like where you're currently at, what you're currently capable of, what your circumstances are currently like. And
Hmm.
then two, like, do you actually want to make the sacrifices that are required to do something like that, to make something like that happen? Uh,
Yeah.
and the sacrifices in terms of like time or money or attention or whatever. Because I feel like a lot of our society has, um, they definitely pedestal a lot of people who are like the traditional form of success or who have the traditional form of like this is the American dream.
Mhm.
Um, but hey, if it's not for you, it's not for you.
Yeah. Yeah, like sometimes we see what is valued as a society and are wanting to fit in makes sense why we're thinking, well, then I should adopt that as a value because that's how I'm going to like secure my safety within this group and feel like I'm, part of this community. But the truth is like sometimes it's okay if that's just like not interesting to you and you
Yeah.
don't have to do it performatively of like I'm not gonna like it just to be rebellious for the sake of rebellion because some people will adopt that as their identity.
Oh, that was me
Like
like 10
I
years ago.
well, I was
So
gonna say I've 100% done that so many times in my life where I'm like, oh no, I'm cool. I don't care about that. And it's like
yeah.
secretly I really do. But
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, like it is nice when you just get to that point of realizing if you want to do it, cool. And if you don't want it, that's fine too. Just because a lot of people
Yeah.
enjoy it doesn't mean it has to be your thing. And just because people enjoy it doesn't mean that not liking it has to be your thing either. You could also just let
Yeah.
people like something and be like, cool, that's not for me, and then move on to whatever is interesting to you. And then that's enough too, you
Yeah, you
know?
don't have to overcomplicate it, which I think is,
Oh,
yeah,
just
which
like
is,
what you like and go for it. And there's enough space, thankfully, in this world for people to live all sorts of lives.
yeah, I know. Which
Yeah.
also just makes me love Dr. Lisa Parrott Feldman even more and her theory of constructive emotions. Like once you're able to figure out what is that life, like what fills your cup and like what you need to like just help yourself metabolically get to a baseline and feel good the majority of the time. Yeah, I feel like that is just a game changer. Like it really helps like shift your perspective on life and yourself and what's possible.
That's right. That's awesome. Well, Chelsea, I'm glad you got to that point. I'm
Me
glad that
too.
swimming did lead you to a change in your life, even though it wasn't the one stroke of a genius change that came to you while you were swimming.
Yeah, thank God though I left that job though. I'll just say that. I'll leave that note. It's like sometimes too, like I think that was like the big chapter of that life or that chapter, the big lesson was um I can do things that are scary and unpredictable. But that's I think another life lesson that I keep learning in layers because I've done really scary and unpredictable things like throughout my entire life, but it's just getting back into it and doing it doing it in a different way, but like fully for myself now, not for anyone else, which is fun.
That's cool. And I will say, as someone who has known you since you were working at the job and now not, I can see how this shift has been one that's been a better fit for you for right now. So I'm
Yeah,
happy for
well, thanks, Casey. I
you.
appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Well, I'm surprised we were able to hold our breath this long, but
I'm not. I'm really good at static apnea. I have a medal. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
we
Also,
are mermaids.
I know my gills say otherwise.
Oh, well, friend, we'll see you.
We can
We'll see you next
surface now.
episode. Yeah. I just like I got caught thinking about like how can I make our bodies like mermaid bodies and just like
If you can figure that out, which I feel like you can because you're good at that kind of stuff, but if you want to mermaid us and then we swim away, that would be
maybe
cool.
yeah.
If we swam away and then jumped out of the water over either a rock wall like Free Willy or over a sunset. That's what I
You
want.
know what? Let's see what we can put together. But
Man.
okay. Well, we'll see you next time, y'all.
Yes. Until next time.